Reeves Jones, Chirayu Patel, and Samuel Henry are on your left. All weekend, we're going to be lining up the players in basically, what do I want to say? How big the set is? What is it? Legacy will be on top, Modern will be in the middle, Standard will be on the bottom. I want to say they're oldest at the top.
The distance from the camera is based on the distance in time you would have to travel back to open a booster pack with these cards.
There we go.
Not an elegant way of phrasing anything.
that was.
I like your legacy and back. You know?
I know. So we got to open some Alliances booster packs on Jones's side. All right, and we are going Cedric starting off on a Plains. Now a Ponder on the Sultai side. Our other matchups in the middle seat, we have Chirayu Patel playing Grixis Shadow against Chad Kastel playing Abzan. Cedric telling us about Chad with the deck. He's a player, they really trust him in the Modern seat. Narrower range in Modern, but they're really confident in his Abzan, his play with this deck specifically, and that's why they have him in the seat.
Yep, a lot of solid results with the deck. They like to bust his chops because it's Abzan, but they certainly are happy to have him there.
And Ryan, I do like what I'm seeing on the Standard side. 4-color control versus 5-color Planeswalkers. We might end up getting to that one. Cedric with the first play of the game here will be on turn number 2.
Yeah, Rashada on port into Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. With Jones just having a basic island, frequently that's going to signify that your opponent is not playing Daze or is light on Daze. Typically the Daze decks are really heavy on non-basics because they're so land light. And Cedric just jams into it instead of activating his port, and it pays off.
Yeah, and there are no Dazes in Jones's list. His list going pretty big here. We notice 2 copies of the card Counter Spell in the list. A lot of his interaction are in the form of cards like Spell Snare and Thoughtseize. These can be difficult against Death and Taxes. We see a Fatal Push from Reeves, taking down Thalia.
And Cedric did not have the turn 1 Ether Vial. That's frequently very clutch in these kind of counterspells, Force of Wills matchups.
So Reeves, it looks like he pushed before combat, which means if Cedric has a second Thalia, he'll be able to cast this turn. A lot of times I would think there you might see a player take 2 and push on end step just to tempo that.
Yeah, 2 damage is pretty inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. You know, you get to play with 20 life. The Death and Taxes deck does not have any reach.
Second port by Phillips. Looks like Stoneforge Mystic shuffled up to the front of his grip here.
If he has another land, there's a strong argument to wait until he can Stoneforge plus port. You kind of put in kind of an awkward spot here if you don't have that rolled up.
Now Stoneforge Mystic asks if it resolves. Looks like Force of Will is an option here for Reeves. He's looking to pitch Jace the Mind Sculptor to it.
This is not Jace's best matchup.
Yeah, well, a lot of these blue cards, I agree, I'm not huge on Jace in this matchup. There's ones I like less.
2 for 1ing yourself against the mono white deck doesn't feel great.
Right.
Whatever card you're pitching, you're still going down 2 cards, so the Stoneforge Mystic itself is a 2 for 1.
Yeah, it looks like he also has a Spell Snare in hand, so there's some option as to what blue card to pitch here. Spell Snare, I mean, Cedric actually plays a lot of 2-drops, and there's no Aether Vial, so Spell Snare is actually good this game, or, I mean, he's played two 2-drops already. What are your thoughts on the card?
I think the Spell Snare is more likely to be able to meaningfully convert. Notably, that Thalia really paid dividends as Reeves had to tap his island to pay the extra on the Fatal Push, so he couldn't leave up Spell Snare that turn.
Here is True Name Nemesis for Reeves. He did end up casting Force of Will, exiling Jace the Mind Sculptor. It looks like his last cards in hand, Spell Snare, Land, and second Force of Will.
When Cedric has no board presence and Jones has already resolved True Name Nemesis, this is a very bad spot for the Death and Taxes deck.
Cedric will attempt for, it looks like, Recruiter of the Guard. So going back to Goblins, yeah, Cedric knows this card real well. The White Goblin Matron, if you will.
More commonly compared to Imperial Recruiter, but...
And another Force of Will, this one pitching Spell Snare.
Interesting choice to go for the Recruiter. You typically would be able to Force of Will whatever it finds.
Yeah, it's you don't counter the tutor, you counter the card it finds. Deathrite Shaman and an attack for Reeves. But Reeves is actually winning the board here against a creature deck. You notice Cedric missing the land. He'll Swords away the Deathrite Shaman. A question I have, once there's a True Name Nemesis on board, what are Cedric's ways to actually stop taking damage, to interact with it?
In the main deck, he's just kind of out of luck.
Yeah, well, he can race it.
Right, racing, it's pretty much it. And like I said, the True Name came down, Cedric had no board presence, so he's really in trouble here. Out of the sideboard, he'll have a couple copies of Council's Judgments, though this game, the True Name is likely to run away with.
Yeah, Cedric down to 14 on a hit there. He'll play Sword of Fire and Ice. And just pass, still no creatures. One of the things that the mono white deck can do to fight against True Name Nemesis, if they can't fight over the Nemesis, is they fight over equipment. Right? If Reeves manages to put an Umezawa's Jite on the True Name Nemesis, that's game over.
Yep, that's lights out. The Death and Taxes deck, for Cedric, he has 3 main deck Phyrexian Revokers. Getting one of those for this Jite would be beneficial.
And he should hope so. Reeves, casting Ponder, finds his one of Jite and casts it.
Bad news for Cedric, though. I believe Reeves' last card in hand is Abrupt Decay.
Ooh. So Cedric can, he can use Revoker. If he had Aether Vial, he could Flicker Wisp it out of play.
Yeah, without Aether Vial, you lose a lot of your shenanigans with this deck.
Yeah. No, Reeves' boards looks great. Also, the top card of his deck from that Ponder, I believe, is a copy of Snapcaster Mage.
Not bad.
Not bad. Cedric will cast another Thalia. Reeves actually, okay, he draws Brainstorm. There is a Snapcaster as that last card down. Brainstorm, always great. Reeves is going to read Sword of Fire and Ice, and so will we too. Card from
Darksteel.
Yeah. 2/2. The creature gets +2/+2 protection from red and blue. Means neither creature can block the other one. If it deals damage, Cedric will draw a card and gets to put 2 more damage onto a target creature or player. But I don't know if he'll ever get to equip it. Reeves equips Jite to True Name Nemesis, attacks, puts 2 counters on the Jite, and spends one of them to give -1 to Thalia.
And with the active Jite, Cedric's on likely a 2-turn clock and won't be able to assemble any creatures.
And game 1 goes for Sultai Control. It is Reeves Jones here, taking the first game for his team. Now for the team format, it's going to be a little different than your normal individual open. We have 3 matches going on simultaneously. Players are allowed to talk to each other at any point during the game, though they do have to keep their own pace of play going in their match. So there are 3 matches. The team that wins 2 of the 3 matches wins the round. Or if the round ends from time, whichever team has won the most matches will win the round.
And if you got a tie there in matches, same as regular.
Then it's a tie.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the important part, the margin by which you win doesn't affect the standings. So when 2 matches finish, the 3rd match is not played out.
You got W's and you got L's.
Right. Let's look at the sideboards here. On Cedric's side, he has 3 copies of Rest in Peace, 2 Gideon Ally of Zendikar, 2 Council's Judgment. You mentioned that card can answer True Name Nemesis, 2 Surgical Extractions, a Sanctum Prelate, a sword, this one of Light and Shadow, a Containment Priest, an Aethersworn Canist, a Pithing Needle, and a Path to Exile.
Given that Reeves demonstrated True Name Nemesis Umezawa's Jite in game 1, it strongly suggests this is like the mid-range Sultai control deck. So you can expect this isn't a lower to the ground Delver strategy. For that reason, Cedric's going to want to try to play this mid-range game as well. The Council's Judgments, again, deal with True Name Nemesis. In some spots, they'll deal with Jace the Mind Sculptor. And the Gideon Ally of Zendikar is the other big find in the sideboard here. That card matches up so well in the head-to-head fight against Jace.
Yeah, it really forces Reeves to have True Name Nemesis to answer Gideon.
Right.
Now, Reeves' side, he has 3 Diabolic Edict, 3 Surgical Extraction, 2 copies of Invasive Surgery, that's the 1-mana counterspell for a sorcery, another counterspell in Flusterstorm, 2 copies of the card Marsh Casualties, a Maelstrom Pulse, and a Life from the Loam.
There's approximately 2.5 cards that he's looking at here. The Marsh Casualties are slam dunks. Those can really pay off if you find yourself behind Mother of Runes, if you didn't have the immediate removal spell. And sometimes Cedric's just going to have a lot of X1s anyway, so this card is really nice. And then the Maelstrom Pulse is a little inefficient, but there are equipment, there are Ether Vials. You want to kill Cedric's creatures. This one is good enough.
Now, what about Diabolic Edict? Cedric's a creature deck that kills creatures.
When they're swarming and they have so many cheap creatures and they have Thalias, it's really not ideal. It kind of depends on how much stuff you want to board out, though. That is the next best card.
Sure.
If he's looking to get off of a bunch of counter spells, then the Diabolic Edicts are the cards you would put in over them.
All right, well, we'll see what he goes for the sideboard. Now, for those of you joining us, we're going to be broadcasting here all weekend on StarCityGames.com and on Twitch TV. And we have our Twitch subscription program. You can join us over in the feature match era by subscribing to our Twitch channel. That's at twitch.tv/SCGTour. For $4.99 a month, you get custom emoticons, custom badges. You also get to help us decide what matches and players to watch in the elimination rounds. We have voting on Sunday every weekend when we broadcast. So you can do that over on the Twitch page, twitch.tv/SCGTour.
See plenty of awesome matches throughout the weekend, as we always do with these team formats. Should see some pretty exciting teams when we do get to that top 8.
See the other ones. Abzan versus, on the modern matchup, Abzan versus Grixis Shadow. Abzan's traditional. This one might be helpful, good for Cedric's team. Abzan, one of the reasons we see an uptick in it is that a lot of the Abzan pilots like their Shadow matchups.
On the front camera, OSIP definitely just resolved and activated Nicol Bolas. So that one's probably going well. But yeah, the Abzan matchup also is reasonable.
I like that you said that. So based on last weekend, that means it's going for the other side, right?
Yeah, right.
I don't think, despite being the winning deck list, we saw Nicol Bolas win exactly one game all weekend.
Yeah.
It was game 1 of the finals.
It was. It was an important game. It lost a lot of less important ones throughout the weekend.
Yeah, we saw it lose a couple games. We saw it not get cast in a lot of games.
Yep. Just kind of rotting in the hands.
I keep seeing boards where it was, wow, he has a 7-mana Planeswalker, and then you look at the board and you'd think, it's not even good here.
Nope. I will ignore that and kill you. Well played.
OSIP, though, originally going to play Mardu vehicles. OSIP, the style of player who, a lot of times with these former pros, you'll see people who either are known for a style of play or are known for technical and good play. OSIP is the latter category here. He's a player who you'll often, rather than having a preference for a style of deck, he has a preference for good cards and good decks.
Yeah.
So if he's playing something like 5-color Planeswalkers, that means, if he put down Mardu vehicles to play this deck, that's a real endorsement.
Mm-hmm. You don't get extra match wins for being fancy.
Yeah, I think sometimes you'll see, you'll see a Wafo Tapa, a player who made the Pro Tour by, what's Wafo playing this weekend? Well, he's playing Control. Is it good? It's good because he's playing it.
Right.
And then you'll get the players, I think, like, maybe like an Owen Turtenwald style player would be a current player who does this, where, or a Brad Nelson, or who could play a different deck every weekend because they want to play just the good deck.
Right. I do have a lot of respect and admiration for the Wafo Tapa approach. You got to play the cards you like, but at some point you do find yourself throwing away some equity on that.
Where do you find yourself when you played in pro events? I know a Delver, a tempo deck's really at home for you.
The last Pro Tour I played a blue-red aggressive deck and constructed and drafted 2 blue-red decks.
All right.
So
how did it go?
I cashed.
All right. All
Yeah,
right.
4-2 in limited, and I don't remember exactly in constructed.
So if I told you I had a sweet black-green mid-range deck,
I'd be off it immediately.
All right. All right, game number 2 here. Cedric on the play with Mother of Runes. No Force of Will, no Fatal Push. This is a big deal.
Yep, Mother Runes untapping makes it so there's a lot of pressure on Reeves to draw specific cards.
How about this? Cavern of Souls, naming human into Thalia, protected by Mother of Runes.
The hard lock.
That's blue. Someone who likes to play blue cards. This looks miserable. I don't know how to beat this.
And Reeves does have those sideboard marsh casualties. His first land was Island, so he'll have to find another black mana source here, in addition to that Underground Sea you just played.
Thalia attacks for 2. How nice is it, though, looking back here, you know, that Cedric does not have to worry about Reeves just being like, well, I'll just miracle this Terminus.
It's pretty nice.
Cedric, no third land. Though, as you mentioned, he still has the lock, so that's fine.
He has Cavern, and he's also leaving up Caracas in the event that the Thalia would die to something.
You're never killing this Thalia.
Right. Yeah, Mother Runes plus Caracas, a lot of protection there.
He attacks. Now, does he have to make more creatures here? We talk about this being a lock. What if he never, you know, he can't just swing this for 10 turns, right?
Something. I want to be a little wary of more 1 toughness creatures.
Okay.
There is a good amount of marsh casualties in sideboards currently.
Here's Sarah Avenger for Cedric. And a 2-mana Spell Snare will be the answer for Reeves. Sarah Avenger, the Cavern is not set to Angel, so.
And he did have to tap Caracas. You know, again, that's like 2 problems. Cavern can't make white, has to leave up Cavern instead of Caracas.
Do you think there was an argument to set the Cavern to Angel in Cedric's situation? I know that that's really bad because that's the only one you play.
Doesn't the Thalia just get spell snared then?
It was already down. Oh, it might have. You're right. We did need it on human for when we cast Thalia.
Yeah.
Okay. Good point. And Mother of Runes and Thalia still doing work. There's an Abrupt Decay in Reeves' hand, and that's just not going anywhere on this board.
Nope. And now Cedric has untapped the Caracas again. That makes it even harder to convert that.
Hit number 3 for Thalia. I showed some skepticism about 10 hits for Thalia ending the game, but maybe I shouldn't be so skeptical about it. He's on his way.
And Flicker Wisp cast by Cedric here. Looks like Reeves is going to go for a counterspell. Doesn't want to face down another 3-power creature here.
All right, yep. Flicker Wisp, if it resolves here, it'll likely target the Caracas?
Yes, you want to get that untapped so you can leave it up for the Thalia here.
Counterspell, the answer here. Man,
ooh.
There's a lot of creatures getting countered with an onboard Cavern. And not, by no fault of Cedric's, but
it's fine. He's still ahead on board.
Yeah, still fine.
With the way that Reeves is casting its spells, he has not already drawn marsh casualties. With the Thalia, that makes it harder to ponder or brainstorm into it.
But he drew it.
Well.
But he drew it. And there we go. A casualty of the marsh are both of those creatures. They both get -1/-1. And now,
if you're Reeves, you wish you still had that counterspell in your hand, but the 2-for-1 feels pretty nice.
You got rid of Thalia Mother of Runes. You have to think that's a win.
Mm-hmm. Make it easier to convert that Abrupt Decay that he's already drawn.
Here's Thalia again from Cedric. Caverned out with Caracas back up. This one, now that Mother of Runes can't protect it, I think we're going to see Caracas do the work to protect it.
Right.
You see,
Reeves has a Jace the Mind Sculptor, makes his 4th land drop, but Thalia is going to push him off that. There's Deathrite Shaman, though.
Yeah, and that extra mana will help. Reeves here has a Jace the Mind Sculptor in hand. Now remember, he has to have 5 for that, so he's building.
Forge Mystic, though, he could go for those on this turn. Find some equipment and really turn up his clock here.
Yeah, here's Thalia. It looks like Reeves is going to attempt to Abrupt Decay. Now Cedric can save it with Caracas.
Gotta figure he'll be making that play.
He will, but Reeves wants this. So Cedric can recast, and if he does, Reeves untaps with Jace mana. This is not bad for the Sultai player.
Needing to use Jace to bounce a creature immediately, not the best use of a Jace, but he will have the Jace for the next turn.
Yeah, I'd say you're right. It's not the best use, but I'd take it.
It could certainly be worse than this.
Yeah.
I suppose if you just brainstorm, the Jace is not going to die.
Yeah, Cedric
Thalia.
I guess it can only take 2. You don't have to worry about bonus damage coming. I guess a 5th land and a Sword of Light and Shadow would get you.
Yeah, but even then, you don't trigger the sword because it attacked a planeswalker, not a player.
Yeah, so it's not that bad. I mean, you lost your Jace. That's
right.
But we'll see if he can. I mean, Jace is the win con for this deck, and he'll Brainstorm.
If that scenario comes up, though, Reeves definitely threw away the Abrupt Decay.
Yeah, he used it as a tempo play. Cedric, 5 cards in hand. One of them's Gideon, ally of Zendikar.
Notably, Cedric couldn't play and attach a sword on this turn because the Thalia means he's more than 1 land off of that. No City of Traders in this deck.
Jace down to 1. Now, actually, wait, Gideon, you can't play without a land here because there's a Thalia.
Yep.
That one affects both players. One of those older Magic cards that does that.
This effect, I believe that it's always symmetrical.
Okay, we're not going to start seeing this printed one way.
This is too messed up if it's one way.
Non-creature spells your opponent's control cost 1 more for your opponents to cast.
Yeah, the new Thalia is asymmetrical, but the effect is very different.
Yeah. Let's see, Sphere of Resistance one-sided.
Yeah. I've lost enough to the symmetrical effect in Vintage, and yeah, I guess the blue decks generally beat these decks in Legacy, but certainly in Vintage, Workshops is so messed up.
Trinisphere's Fair. Both players have to pay 3.
Yep, that card's certainly restricted.
Stoneforge Mystic will find Batterskull for Cedric. Potential cards he has, Sword of Fire and Ice, Sword of Light and Shadow, Batterskull, and Umezawa's Jite. All are in the deck.
And no trigger off of the second Stoneforge Mystic, so he's drawn every equipment that's in his deck.
Oh, another Marsh Casualties picked up for Reeves.
This one's a lot worse. Stoneforge Mystic is a Squire, 1/2.
Well, hold on. Marsh Casualties has a kicker to it.
I suppose he has a Deathrite Shaman, so he can pay the 6th mana to kick
that. It would be 6. Jace is going to Brainstorm. So if you're willing to pay, it's 2 mana to give their creatures -1/-1, but if you pay 5, they get -2, which seems like a lot, but on this board actually I'm pretty into it.
May as well.
Yeah. Marsh Casualties with kicker. I don't know that he actually had to Deathrite.
Yeah, made a land drop, okay.
Yeah, you think he went back up, and Cedric's like, no, you already removed the land. But it'll work. Deathrite Shaman will then... Oh, no, it's tapped for mana, right. But we're good. Cedric's creatures are gone.
Though Gideon's looking pretty nice now. Now that the Thalia's gone, Cedric can cast that on this turn.
Yeah.
He's got a fistful of equipment. And again, Gideon's really nice in the heads-up fight against Jace. Especially Jace on 1 loyalty. You can't make tempo plays like bounce the token and try to convert.
And here's Gideon, ally of Zendikar. Goes back to it's like the high school situation, right? It's like the buff guy versus the book guy. You know, Gideon's just he's gonna take his lunch money.
Jace's backstory is that he was bullied in the school
by Gideon.
Not by Gideon. Not by Gideon. Gideon was busy watching all of his friends die. His story's a little more tragic.
That one, wow, just kill. That changes the mood, doesn't it?
A little bit.
Gideon will make an ally. A Brainstorm from, it looks like Jace's ability here.
Yep.
He has a Brainstorm in his hand as well. Snapcaster Mage picked up. Look at the graveyard. You have 4 different spells. None of them answer Gideon just yet.
Nope.
Leovold, Snapcaster Mage, Brainstorm in hand. Deathrite in play.
Snapcaster Mage with the Marsh Casualties can catch up against a lot of value if he can buy some turns. Still has a good amount of life to play with as well.
Looks like Reeves will crack a fetch land, maybe to reset a Brainstorm. Does he have just a clean answer, a Maelstrom Pulse, something that just
There is the one Maelstrom Pulse in the sideboard.
Okay. Wouldn't be surprised to see that boarded in.
Yep. It certainly plays here.
But if he's just looking for a 1-of, that's a lot to ask. Is there... maybe True Name Nemesis. That would be a great card to find.
Yeah, that cleans it up in pretty short order.
It's got a lot of looks. And he'll cast the Brainstorm now. And there we go. True Name Nemesis.
A Thoughtseize is hanging out in that Brainstorm as well, so he can get one of those equipments out of Cedric's hand.
Some updates from your other matches. In Modern, Chad Kastel with Abzan takes game 1. And in Standard, as Nicol Bolas, not enough. Game 1 goes to Samuel Henry.
Nicol Bolas, the underwhelming.
And Reeves will cast his Brainstorm, puts a land and Leovold on top. He's going to Thoughtseize Cedric. Still plenty of cards in Cedric's hand, so we'll get a look at them. Swords to Plowshares, Batterskull, Sword of Fire and Ice, and Phyrexian Revoker. A lot to like there.
Likely a choice between one of those two equipments. Notably, Cedric can't cast the Batterskull just yet.
Yeah, that's a problem Reeves could deal with later. Is he worried about Sword of Fire and Ice?
Probably more than he is worried about the Batterskull because of the True Name Nemesis.
Yeah.
That does a lot of work against Batterskull if you can engage in combat, as long as it's not equipped to a flying creature.
Well, if you don't take Sword, if you take something else and play True Name, and Cedric draws a land, your board blows up, right? Sword equipped to Knight. Knight swings through.
Yes.
Like Path to Exile the Deathrite Shaman. Sword equipped to the ally. Ally attacks, kills Jace, or hits Reeves, shocks Jace. I don't know, this is bad.
It's a lot of bad news.
It's a lot of, yeah. Gideon's still around.
Leaning pretty heavily on Sword of Fire and Ice here.
Yeah, that's what Reeves will take.
Top card of his deck currently is Leovold, Emissary of Trest, which has decent interplay against the sword, but it's not enough.
So True Name is played. That's a blocker. Though if Reeves, well, actually I was going to say if he would have to chump block, but he does have that Snapcaster Mage in hand, so we'll see what exactly happens. And say if Cedric plussed and swung them both at Jace.
Swords to Plowshares can get the Shaman out of the way.
Yeah, I'm not sure that card's getting any better.
No.
The question is whether or not Cedric actually can take the time off to spend a mana to cast it, depending on what else he wants to do.
Having swords in your hand against a True Name Nemesis is just one of the big feel-bads in the Legacy format.
Yeah, it doesn't work here. Do you think Cedric has Council's Judgments sided in because of True Name?
I mean, yeah, he saw True Name game 1. He saw Jace the Mind Sculptor pitch to Force of Will. It makes a lot of sense to bring that card in here.
Boarding in removal against a control deck never feels good, but I suppose when the threats are as heavy impact as this, that you just do.
It's better than Swords.
So Cedric will lead pre-combat on Swords to Plowshares. Reeves just lets it get exiled. No, I don't think we have any lands in graveyards. Yeah, I'll make sure that Deathrite gets actually exiled. A swing with both from Cedric. Snapcaster Mage will jump into play. And looks like True Name blocks Gideon. Snapcaster trades with the token. So Jace survives.
Yeah, Cedric really wanted to be able to convert there. With Reeves untapping, with the Jace being able to pressure the Gideon with the True Name Nemesis.
Here's Rashad and Port from Cedric, and then he will use Phyrexian Revoker and name Jace the Mind Sculptor. Looks like Jace might, Jace might leave the battlefield, but now there's going to be the problem of True Name Nemesis in the face of, well, I mean, it's going to, in 2 turns, it will take care of the Gideon.
Cedric has the Jace covered decently enough, given that the True Name can't kill Gideon just yet.
Yeah, here's Leovold from Reeves, and Gideon will be attacked down to 2. He'll pass. What's interesting here to me is going to be to see, you know, how quick can Cedric, I guess Cedric can cast the Batterskull as the last card in his hand. Then we'll have this race between the two. Cedric draws Flicker Wisp, it looks like.
That can reset the Gideon.
Yeah, that's a really strong draw, actually.
And given that the Batterskull doesn't get in front of the True Name Nemesis anyway, and then it's a flying attacker, you know, Reeves is at 11. Cedric giving Leovold a good read here. One of them fake magic cards from Conspiracy, Take the Crown.
Yeah, I never opened one of those in draft.
I guess that the text is not the most effective. The text box here, each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. Whenever you or a permanent you control, relevant for Rashad and Port, Wasteland, becomes a target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. So that makes the Flicker Wisp even more incentive for Cedric to target his own things here.
choice here for Reeves. Gideon is attacking Jace. Reeves can lose the Jace or the Leovold. He'll put Jace into the graveyard. It's already kept in check by Phyrexian Revoker. Probably makes that choice easier. All right, well, one match is done. In the middle is Chad Kastel with Obzon winning 2-0 over Chirayu Patel, giving his team the first match of the round. Both his teammates are down a game.
Kastel doing the heavy lifting in the team of Cedric and Osip.
And Cedric will pass up the Flicker Wisp for Batterskull. This means that Reeves actually can kill the Gideon.
I suppose making sure you land the Batterskull. If Cedric finds a window to equip the Flicker Wisp with the Batterskull, that'll close this game pretty effectively.
Gideon is down, and now all eyes are on this match. Samuel Henry 2-0 is a winner in Standard. So already the team of Phillips, Kastel, and Lebedowicz finding themselves in a tough situation in the very first round.
Now Cedric can also potentially use the Flicker Wisp to reset the Revoker against, say, Umezawa's Jite. You might want to keep it on Jace to stop that as a top deck. But if Reeves is able to set up Jite with a True Nemesis, that'll change the game pretty dramatically.
Well, I think what Cedric's looking at is Reeves is at 11. Cedric has a Batterskull. He could just attempt to race from here.
Yep. And the Gideon activation for another 2-2 wouldn't impact too much in the grand scheme of things. Ooh.
Here's an attack. Now, as long as, keep in mind, you see another Gideon from Cedric. What a draw.
Well, with that Batterskull connecting that turn, that puts Reeves at 7. That's one attack with Flicker Wisp equipped with Batterskull.
Well, and remember, we have this Caracas that can bounce Leovold. I understand that Reeves will draw a card, but I don't really care at this point.
Yeah, if you can just make a lethal attack otherwise, you get that one out of the way, draw a card, whatever. Small number of things that actually interact in combat.
Caracas a blocker, Flicker Wisp a blocker. Cedric has some very good attacks that are coming up. And that's going to do it. We're going to go to a third game.
And Gideon doing work there. Certainly in the top 3 Planeswalkers of all time.
Sure, I mean, and that's why we see it in Legacy. It's really...
Not quite good enough to crack Vintage. You pretty much have to be blue to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting when you say that, because first I agree with you that it is, but it's kind of selective as to where you want to play it. With Jace the Mind Sculptor, where you want, which is probably #1 on the list of Planeswalkers. If I ask where do you want to play Jace, it's blue decks. Really, almost any blue deck.
The supporting cast for Gideon revolves around a format where creatures matter and having a lot of stuff in your deck that is good at interacting with creatures, be it removal spells or reasonable creatures of your own to engage in combat. That's where Gideon really shines.
Right, I mean, you'll even see in Standard decks playing white that don't play Gideon. Like we saw our Michael Hamilton's winning deck list from last week had no Gideon main, 2 in the side. If you go back to Standard and look at Standard with Jace the Mind Sculptor in it, that deck would have 4 Jaces.
Yes.
So we're going to have a 1 game to decide the round between Reeves Jones and Cedric Phillips. Now, all the action this weekend, you can catch up on what you missed over on our YouTube page. That's StarCityGames.com YouTube page. We have full archives of all of our opens here on the SCG Tour. So you get to catch each of your formats this weekend. They'll go up sometime next week. There's a lot more on our page as well. We have our Versus series, which is where top players on the SCG Tour showcase different matchups of top decks. We have our Split Second series. We have our Commander Versus series, which is our 4-player games. Get to see full gameplays of their Commander decks. We have Magic Online play testing, where you watch some of our pros prepare for big tournaments. The best of the SCG Tour, some of our highlights of top matches here, and a lot more. You can subscribe to our YouTube page at youtube.com/StarCityGames.
Tons of great content there for sure. Check out highlights, Standard, Modern, Legacy. Versus video, very popular offering as well.
Well, Cedric Phillips, we don't get to see him play very often here on the SCG Tour. But originally from Strongsville, Ohio, now living in the Seattle area. He has 3 open top 8s. Has played an open, so not always in the booth. I've been fortunate enough to cover at least one of those top 8s. Favorite bands are Newfound Glory, Yellow Card, and Paramore. That much I knew. Been to every major city in the U.S. besides New Orleans. Now I wonder what.
I want to know who's being snubbed. Who's being snubbed?
Yeah. I wanna stir something up with that comment. What? There's some city there that should be on the list and isn't, and I'm upset about it.
Yeah. Certainly been to a lot of them, but there's got to be somebody being snubbed here.
Every major city.
All of them.
If he hasn't been to your town, it's not major.
It's not a real city.
I like that one. Eat Cinnamon Toast Crunch once per year on Christmas Eve. Okay.
A lot of questions on that one too.
There's so many ways. Okay. Where are you going?
Well, you can go to a happy place. You can go to a dark place, or we can just watch a game of Magic.
It's a very brooding experience. The Christmas Eve Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Would it be breakfast or would it be dinner?
That's another spot. You can go to logistics.
I'm just wondering how the tradition works. Because see, for me, like my Christmas Eve traditions don't start in the morning of Christmas Eve. That's like a day too early. But breakfast for dinner, I don't know. Or cereal for dinner is kind of...
Yeah, calling cereal breakfast is a little strong.
Turn 1 death right from Reeves Jones. There's a fetch land, and he'll pass. No attack. Does that mean anything here?
Fetch land, he's leaving up 3 mana. Really not much in the way of 3 mana instant speed action.
Is leaving up double blue this way, though.
True, yeah. Bayou was the first land. Could counterspell proper a creature here.
Stoneforge Mystic from Cedric. He's going to fetch in response. Maybe we will see that counterspell.
This is a good target for it.
Yeah, it is using his 1 fetch land to cast it, which means we're not going to see a, if he had Jace the Mind Sculptor in his hand, he'd probably just let this resolve. Right. Jace, unsummon, go.
And if he had True Name Nemesis, that would just be the turn 2 play you have to figure.
Right, so while this is a good play, it suggests that his hand is missing something.
Yep.
Draw, picks up Snapcaster Mage. Well, that's always good. Another fetch land and a pass for Reeves.
Could see a Snapcaster counterspell here.
So, my read on this, definitely no Jace. I think we would have cast it there.
Would have been a good spot for Jace.
Cedric's going to go for another Stoneforge Mystic. Is this going to get Snapcaster counterspell? Looks like it. Here's a fetch land. Now, by doing all these fetch land plays, I believe there's a Brainstorm in Reeves' hand. He is using his fetch lands in not Brainstorm ways.
One thing about the controlling builds of these Sultai decks is that he's intending to make more land drops as it is. So he could still convert a Brainstorm down the line if he draws another fetch land. You're right, he won't be able to do it with any kind of immediacy, but as long as Cedric's board is managed, that's more or less fine.
So Reeves continuing to keep pace here. Of note, though, if this doesn't really matter if Reeves doesn't have a follow-up.
Yeah, now he's got that 2/1 Snapcaster Mage. Does an approximation of Thalia beats.
Wasteland by Cedric, but he does not pull the trigger.
Man, fetch land was picked up by Reeves.
Yeah.
He wanted to play his Tropical Island, but his teammate told him no.
Yeah, actually no Brainstorm. It looks like Reeves' hand is a Fatal Push and 2 lands.
Ah.
He'd love to see a Brainstorm off the top here.
Yeah, and he'll want to sit on those 2 lands also.
So that his Brainstorm's even better when he draws it?
Right. Got plenty of mana available as well, so even a Jace to reset the hand would be able to do it without having to crack the fetch land.
Yeah, and you see on Cedric's side, I mean, if he had it, land Gideon would be great here.
You saw Cedric did play Wasteland, but he's a little light on mana himself, and he has no board presence, so he didn't aggressively use it last turn. Reevaluating now.
Looks like he's going to pull the trigger, hits one of the Underground Seas. And that'll go. Puts 2 lands in the graveyard for Deathrite Shaman. Port and Mirren Crusader for Cedric. Well, Fatal Push isn't going to answer that.
Yeah, Reeves' hand is just blank here. The Snapcaster Mage invalidated because it's just a 2/1 against the double striking 2/2. Looks like another Snapcaster Mage picked up for Reeves. That doesn't do anything here.
No, his graveyard's gone. I mean, it flashes back the Fatal Push.
If it were a 2-2, then you could put both in front of the Mirror Crusader.
Yeah.
Given that they're 2-1s, they just both died of first strike, though.
Here comes Crusader for 4 damage. Reeves is going to take it. They're thinking about... He thought for a second here, well, if I put this Snapcaster Mage into play and double block...
then I can lose both my Snapcaster Mages and flash back 0 spells.
Well, but it would get the Crusader if Cedric has nothing.
It would
oh, no,
not.
it wouldn't. They're both 1 toughness. Okay, that's just bad. Port on one of Reeves' lands from Cedric. On 2 of Reeves' lands. Here's Maelstrom Pulse, another way to answer Mirror Crusader. If only it wasn't both black and green.
Modern and Legacy All-Star Mirror Crusader. Just doing an honest day's work, attacking for 4. And Cedric just using these ports here to manage mana on Reeves' side, though. Reeves doesn't have any meaningful spells. By not committing other creatures, though, Cedric is turning off Reeves' hand. He can't cast this Fatal Push or Maelstrom Pulse to do anything here. Wasteland there as well for Cedric.
Reeves at 14 now off that hit. Had gained some life earlier from Deathrite Shaman. Cedric's going to Wasteland away another Underground Sea. Port a land. Leave Reeves with just some fetch lands.
Being a little fancy using the Wasteland on the upkeep, but it doesn't really make a difference.
And here you go. That's what Reeves was looking for. True name Nemesis. He'll fetch down to 12.
That one changes everything.
Yeah, I mean, it will force Cedric to have Council's Judgment.
Given that Cedric hasn't cast spells in a few turns, it's possible that that's in the holdings. You know, we'll find out shortly, I have to imagine.
Deathrite Shaman will help it along. Exile one of the 2 Wastelands, sure. And here's True Name Nemesis. This can block Mirror Crusader, and then Snapcaster Mage attacks. Cedric is down to 14. Now can he answer back?
Land plus Sword of the Fire and Ice would be absurd here.
That'd be great. There's land. Sword of Fire and Ice or Council's Judgment. Say Mother of Rune's no good here. Remember, Reeves' hand is Fatal Push and Snapcaster Mage and Maelstrom Pulse.
Yeah, Sword would actually be lethal because it's 2 hits for 4, 2 activations to shock. So
it'd be
if
a
he
real
had
nice top
that,
deck.
gotta figure you'd have already played it.
I'd have to worry about Force of Will. You might think, how do I Force of Will check my opponent? It'd be pretty nice, though. Here's Cavern of Souls from Cedric. Cavern on Elemental. Let's make sure this Flicker Wisp resolves. It's going to target Cavern of Souls, and now then when it comes back, we'll put it on a different creature type. I like that.
Not one of the more powerful tricks that the deck is capable of, but a good one to know.
Cavern comes back.
Having the flyer on the battlefield, certainly significant here. Reeves will want to answer that one. He did have to crack 2 fetch lands.
Yeah, can't revolt the Fatal Push just yet.
Right.
Cavern of Souls set to Horror on the way back down.
Phyrexian Revoker.
I don't know.
Robots
Robots are horrors?
Yeah, Arcbound Ravager's a beast, man. What do you want from me?
I guess somehow like a robot beast makes sense to me, but like...
Really?
Well...
Why is that any different? You're just choosing,
like,
you're choosing to be bothered by one.
I am. Abrupt Decay on the Flicker Wisp. Reeves says go.
No attack on the True Name because he's behind in that race.
I mean, you can build a robot animal, right? It's like a mechanical... Yeah, sure.
You could build a robot that is horrifying.
Horror isn't an adjective. It's like a mythos. It's like a nightmare-ish thing.
Anything that exists only in fantasy
there are rules.
is hard to argue
rules.
with. That is not really rules.
Phyrexian Revoker. It's going to name something, but in response, Reeves is going to float a black mana, and I believe just Fatal Push it. We'll see what Cedric names. Probably Deathray Shaman.
Yep.
Maybe Jace. I don't know. It's not going to matter. It's going to die. And he'll push away the Revoker.
Given that Cedric is so heavy on ports, it makes sense to go for the Shaman over Jace.
It did name Deathray Shaman for that brief window. Reeves draws Brainstorm. Snapcaster Pulse Brainstorm. It's looking good here. Here is Brainstorm from Reeves. So he's got the blocking all settled up here with this True Name Nemesis, but how does he win?
If you could find that GT to put on the True Name, that'll close the game in very short order.
You see the top of the deck for Reeves, just a stack of kill spells now as he plays another Deathray Shaman.
And he does play a full 3 True Name Nemesis. So if all those are still in the deck, finding a second copy, you can use one to check the Crusader, attack with the other one.
I suppose these Deathray Shamans could end the game eventually.
And just start casting instant sorceries.
Yeah. Upkeep. Cedric's going to tap some lands. Reeves is going to use the mana, though, to activate Deathray Shaman. Exiles Brainstorm to deal 2 to Cedric.
And with the two Shamans, that's a pretty significant clock.
Let's see. Exiles. Another one away. Fatal Push away to deal 2. Cedric's down to 10. This was all in Reeves' upkeep. He'll draw now. He'll draw Maelstrom Pulse. Hand, push Snapcaster Mage. And it really shows that I think he's trying to bleed, just use Shamans to win the game. He had a Brainstorm in graveyard and a Snapcaster in hand, and instead he just exiled the Brainstorm to his Death Rites.
Yep. With Cedric at 10 life, it's not even clear that the Council's Judgment would be good enough as a top deck at this point. Reeves could just chump block the Mirror Crusader with Snapcaster Mage while they otherwise close the game.
Well, one of the Death Rites was exiled to Swords to Plowshares. That will help Cedric if he can hit that Council's Judgment. Here's Thalia as a follow-up. Reeves, plenty of answers to that card. Can counter it. Cavern of Souls is not unhuman. Does not have the counter. And we'll pass on upkeep. Cedric's going to do some Rishadan porting.
Good chance to see Deathrite Shaman activations in response again.
Clock there is correct. So players, you know, they were hoping to end this. Here's Fatal Push on Thalia, paying 2, and Cedric will bounce it. Says go. Reeves draws Abrupt Decay.
Makes it even harder for Cedric to close from here.
And now an attack. True Name puts Cedric down to 7. Reeves says go. And you see closing in here. An end-step Deathrite puts Cedric to 5. They're looking to kill on the next turn.
Yep, there's 2 instants in Reeves' graveyard currently. That's enough for 2 Shaman activations. That's 4. True Name Nemesis, 3 more.
It's going to be hard for Cedric to get around. He'd need a Swords to Plowshares for one of his own creatures, or maybe if he wants to gain life. Mirran Crusader will attack. Reeves takes it, goes to 9. Fire Thalia, the play again from Cedric. His hand looks to be just another Thalia and another Caracas. So he says go, end step down to 5.
As long as Reeves
here's the windup, yep.
activates again, he's in the clear.
Port the Underground Sea. Might as well use the mana. Put Cedric down to 3. That's in range. Look, everything checks out. And game and match. So the team of Reeves, Jones, Chirayu, Patel, and Samuel Henry are your winners here in round 1. They win the standard and legacy matches.